Someone in heaven broke God's order, just to save you. That's how the voice begins. Not thunder, not a trumpet, just a whisper behind your ribs, quiet but steady, as though someone has opened a window inside your chest. You stop what you're doing. The air changes. A softness spreads through the room like dawn pressing through fog. You try to tell yourself it's nothing, imagination, exhaustion, but the feeling won't fade. It feels like someone who knows you better than you know yourself is reaching out from a distance you cannot measure. And then, faintly, you hear it, Michael is crying for you. The name stirs something old in you. Maybe you once had a friend named Michael, maybe a brother, maybe it's simply the echo of a story you heard long ago. But the sound of it breaks through your walls. It carries sorrow and tenderness all at once, like the kind of tears that are shed not out of defeat but out of deep love. You close your eyes. The whisper returns, "Please open this." What is this? A message? A memory? A door you've kept shut for too long? You sit still, listening. The world seems to hold its breath. Heaven is watching, not as a courtroom, but as an audience that refuses to look away, hoping the main character finally chooses light over darkness. And then the story begins to unfold. It starts with you walking home through a city that no longer feels alive. Neon signs blink tiredly, people pass each other without meeting eyes, and everything seems slightly hollow, like the world is running on echoes instead of voices. You feel that hollowness in yourself too, a quiet ache you've learned to ignore. Tonight, though, something feels different. The ache is stronger, but so is the pull toward something unseen. The whisper returns, softer now, "You were not meant to fade." You stop beneath a flickering streetlight, heart thudding. The sound doesn't come from outside, it rises from within, the way grief does, or hope. You whisper back, half embarrassed, "Who are you?" No answer, only warmth, settling over you like the hush before dawn. You walk on. Halfway home, you pass an old bookstore you used to visit years ago. The lights are off, but through the window you see a faint glow coming from the back. Something compels you to go closer. The door, surprisingly, opens. Dust floats in the still air. On the counter lies a single envelope, unmarked except for your name written in a hand that feels strangely familiar. You pick it up. Your fingers tremble. Inside, the letter reads, ***, you have forgotten who you are. The world has pressed its noise against your heart, and you stopped hearing the music that once made you alive. But you were never alone. Love has followed you into every dark room, waiting for you to notice. This is your moment. Open your heart before it closes forever, ***. The paper smells faintly of rain and lilac. At the bottom, one line is scrawled in haste, ***, M***. You fold the letter carefully, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or run. It feels impossible, yet something in you knows it's real, not because of the paper, but because of the truth in the words. You have forgotten. You tuck the envelope inside your coat and step back into the night. The world feels lighter. At home, you set the letter on your table and stare at it as though it might speak again. The room feels different now, not larger, but awake. You realize how long you've lived surrounded by silence of your own making, closing doors inside your mind so you wouldn't have to face what lay behind them. You whisper, "Michael," and the word feels less like a name, more like a key. The whisper answers inside you, "Yes." You see flashes, memories of times you almost gave up, moments when help came unexpectedly, when you felt a presence urging you not to surrender. Each of those moments had carried the same warmth, the same invisible hand lifting your chin when you couldn't look up. You finally understand. You never left. I couldn't. Tears come easily. You don't feel frightened anymore. You feel seen. The whisper continues, patient and calm, *, they told me to let you go, that your choices were yours to make. But love disobeyed. Love broke the rule. Love stepped between the darkness and your breath. Because even freedom needs a friend, *. You can't speak. You sit quietly while the meaning sinks in. The ache you've carried for years isn't punishment, it's homesickness. Time stretches. The city outside moves through its routines, but inside, something eternal unfolds. The letter has opened not just memory but possibility. You begin to notice signs of quiet grace everywhere, a stranger holding a door, the laughter of a child, a slant of light through dusty blinds. Each small mercy feels deliberate, as if someone is reminding you that heaven's language is written in the ordinary. That night, as you drift toward sleep, you hear the voice one last time for the day, *, rest now. Tomorrow you begin again, *. You smile into the dark, whispering, "Thank you." Somewhere, unseen, the one called Michael smiles too. The morning comes quietly, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace that has settled in your home. You wake before sunrise, the letter still resting on your bedside table, edges curled slightly from the warmth of your hand through the night. For a moment, you don't move. You simply watch the light grow stronger, soft gold brushing across the walls, spilling gently over everything it touches. You feel it again, that quiet pull towards something beyond understanding. The whisper returns, faint but unmistakable, *, wake up. The world needs you awake, *. You rise and dress slowly, the way one might prepare for a ceremony. There is no urgency, yet every motion feels sacred. You make coffee, sit near the window, and watch the city stirring to life. Cars hum softly, birds cut through the sky in loose formation, people hurry by with eyes on their phones, but you see something else. You see the invisible threads connecting all of them, the way each person carries a story, a longing, a quiet prayer they never say aloud. You realize how many times you, too, have walked through this same world without seeing it. You take out the letter and read it again. The words don't just speak, they listen. Each time you read them, they seem to mirror something new in you. You have forgotten who you are. You whisper the line to yourself. Then who am I? And for the first time, you feel that the question is not about identity, but about remembering. About peeling away everything false until only truth remains. You decide to take a walk. The sky has turned pale blue, streaked with light that feels almost liquid. The world smells of rain and soil and fresh beginnings. You walk without direction, letting your feet choose the path. After a while, you find yourself near the river, a place you haven't visited in years. The water moves slowly, reflecting the sun like shattered glass. A bench waits nearby, empty, as if expecting you. You sit. The wind carries whispers through the trees, and for a moment, you think you hear the name again. Michael. You close your eyes and listen. The voice comes softly this time, like a friend speaking from a long distance. Do you remember when you stopped believing that love could find you? You nod, almost ashamed. Yes. It was when everything started to fall apart. And yet, love found you anyway. You can't help but smile. It's true. Even in the darkest moments, even when you didn't believe in anything, something or someone always seemed to pull you through. Was that you? You ask quietly. It doesn't matter who. What matters is that you were never alone. Love has many faces, You sit with that thought for a long time. The world feels gentler now, as if the air itself has softened around you. Hours pass. You walk further along the river, lost in thought. The path curves, and you find a small park you never knew existed. Children laugh, dogs chase each other, an old man feeds pigeons from his palm. Everything feels alive in a way it hasn't for years. You sit under a tree, and for reasons you can't explain, you begin to write. At first, you don't even know what you're writing, just words spilling from somewhere deep within. I forgive myself for the years I spent asleep. For the words I didn't say, for the kindness I withheld, for the love I refused to receive. I forgive myself for building walls when I was only meant to build doors. When you finish, you fold the paper and tuck it into your pocket. Something shifts in your chest, like a lock turning quietly. For the first time in a long time, you feel light. Michael is crying for you. The whisper comes again, but now it sounds different, not a warning, but a blessing. You realize the tears were never about sorrow. They were about joy. Tears shed for someone who finally chooses to come home to themselves. That evening, as you return home, the city seems to shimmer. You notice things you've never noticed before, the kindness in a stranger's eyes, the warmth of light spilling from windows, the laughter echoing from an upstairs apartment. The inheritance of heaven, the love that broke the rule, isn't distant anymore. It's here, breathing with you, walking beside you, alive in every small act of grace you witness. When you reach your door, you pause. The voice speaks one more time, clearer now, no longer a whisper. Heaven didn't break the rule to rescue you from pain. It broke the rule to remind you that you were never separate from love. You only believed you were. You close your eyes, tears gathering, and breathe in that truth. The ache that once lived in your chest has turned into light. You whisper back, then let me carry it. Let me live as proof that love never gives up. And somewhere, in a place words cannot reach, Michael smiles again, not with relief, but with pride. The mission is complete, but the story has just begun. The next morning feels like the first day of your real life. You wake before the alarm, heart steady, thoughts clear. The room itself seems to breathe with you. Nothing dramatic has changed, same walls, same furniture, but you feel as though every molecule has rearranged itself to whisper, begin again. You brew coffee, but instead of scrolling through messages, you open the window. Air rushes in, cool, fragrant, alive. It brushes against your face the way a parent might wake a sleeping child, gentle but certain. Outside, the city is already moving, and yet you sense that you're not separate from it anymore. The pulse that beats in the pavement beats in you too. You step out into the morning. Each step feels deliberate, grounded. You move slowly, noticing the pattern of shadows, the way light drips between buildings like water. It's as if you've been granted new eyes. At the corner cafe, the barista looks tired, distracted. Normally you'd take your coffee and go, but something nudges you. Rough morning, you ask. She blinks, surprised that anyone noticed. Yeah, she says after a moment, just one of those days. You smile, nothing forced. They don't last forever. It isn't profound, but it lands. She exhales, shoulders easing. For a heartbeat, two strangers share peace. As you leave, the whisper inside you murmurs, "This is how heaven speaks now, through you." You begin to live that way, listening, noticing, responding. Some days you falter, old habits pull at you. But each time, you remember the letter and the tears that were never about loss but love. You remember that mercy isn't a single moment, it's a practice. At work, when someone snaps at you, you pause instead of returning the fire. You ask what's wrong. Sometimes they tell you, sometimes they don't. Either way, the space you offer softens something unseen. On the train, you give up your seat without thinking. You catch your reflection in the window, eyes quieter, posture easier. You realize that gentleness has its own strength. Evenings, you return to the river. You watch the current carry bits of light, leaves, forgotten things. You start to write again, not letters this time, but small fragments of gratitude. For the breath that did not give up on me, for the stranger who smiled back, ***, for the voice that broke the rules so I could learn what love really means, ***. Sometimes you burn the notes afterward, watching smoke curl upward like silent prayers. You don't need to keep them, the act of writing is enough. One day you meet a child near the park, crying over a broken kite. The string has snapped, the paper torn. You kneel, fix what you can, and show them how to fly it again. When it lifts into the sky, the child laughs, a sound so pure it shakes you. You think of the voice, of Michael's tears, and realize, this laughter is what they wanted to save. The ability to feel joy, to create it for others. You walk home lighter, humming without realizing it. That night, you dream. You stand on a field of endless light. The horizon breathes gold. In the distance, a figure approaches, not glowing, not winged, simply familiar. You know who it is before you see the face. Michael? He nods. His eyes are bright but gentle, as though all of time rests inside them. You're living, he says quietly. That's all heaven ever wanted. You open your mouth to speak, but he lifts a hand, no need. You've already answered. He reaches into the light and hands you something small, a fragment of the torn kite you fixed earlier. Keep this, he says. A reminder that everything broken can still rise. Before you can reply, he steps back. The light folds around him like a tide returning to sea. When you wake, the room is filled with morning again. On your nightstand lies a scrap of paper shaped like a kite's wing. You don't question it, you simply smile. Days slip into weeks. The quiet miracles continue. You notice that the people around you start to change, not because you preach or push, but because kindness is contagious. A coworker begins leaving small notes of encouragement on desks. The tired barista laughs more. The old man at the park now waits to share breadcrumbs with anyone who passes. Sometimes you wonder if heaven really broke its rule, or if heaven simply reminded you that love never had boundaries to begin with. Either way, you're grateful. Every night before sleep, you whisper into the dark, "Thank you for not giving up." And somewhere, in whatever realm love calls home, a voice answers back, "We never will." The seasons begin to shift, quietly, as they always do. The trees along the river trade their green for shades of amber and gold. The air smells of wood smoke and wet earth. Life keeps moving, not fast, but with purpose, and you move with it. You walk the same paths, but they feel new every time. Each day carries a different kind of music, laughter spilling from open doors, the hush of rain on rooftops, the slow hum of distant traffic. The world hasn't changed, not really. You have. And that changes everything. The letter still rests on your shelf, edges soft from handling. Sometimes you read it again, though you no longer need the words to remember their meaning. The ink is fading, but the message has taken root inside you. Asterisk, you were never alone. Love broke the rule. Love came for you, asterisk. You think often of the night you first heard the voice, the whisper that felt like a heartbeat calling from somewhere beyond despair. Back then, you thought it was about rescue. Now you understand it was about remembrance. Love didn't come to pull you out of life, it came to pull you deeper into it. Winter comes, and with it, silence. The river freezes near the edges, and the days shorten until it feels as though the world itself is holding its breath. You spend more time indoors, reading, writing, watching the way light finds its way through small cracks and corners. Sometimes you wonder if you imagined it all, the letter, the voice, the dream of Michael. But then something small happens, a stranger's kindness, a sudden peace in the middle of a difficult day, a warmth that rises from nowhere. And you know. You've learned that miracles rarely arrive in thunder, they come in whispers, in everyday grace. You begin writing letters again, not to Michael this time, but to people you know. Short notes of thanks, apology, encouragement. You don't always send them, sometimes the act of writing is enough. You realize that words, when filled with intention, can be their own form of light. One afternoon, as snow begins to fall, you decide to visit the park again. It's empty except for the old man feeding the pigeons. You greet him, sit beside him, and share the breadcrumbs you brought. For a while, neither of you speaks. The world is quiet except for the flutter of wings and the soft sound of snow settling on branches. After a time, the man looks at you and says, "Funny thing about birds, they trust that there's enough. They don't hoard. They just eat what they need and fly." You nod, smiling. Maybe that's faith. Maybe, he says. Or maybe it's remembering that the sky was always theirs. The words settle into you like seeds in warm soil. You think about how, all along, you've been learning the same lesson, to trust that love is enough, that it doesn't need permission, that it moves freely, like air, like light. The years start to weave themselves quietly together. You age, as all things do, but you find beauty in it. Your hair turns silver, your steps slow, but your spirit feels clearer than ever. The world still has its noise, its pain, its endless rushing, but you have learned to listen beneath it, to the heartbeat of something eternal. Every so often, you still feel that familiar presence, gentle as ever, asterisk still here, asterisk the whisper says. You smile. I know. There is no distance now, no fear of losing what once saved you. Love has become your constant companion, not as a voice above, but as a rhythm within. You carry it wherever you go. You've learned that heaven is not a place somewhere else, it is the way light falls when you finally open your eyes. One evening, long after the city has quieted, you sit at your window watching the snow fall. The world glows soft and silver. You feel an old warmth return, and you know before you hear it that the moment has come full circle. Someone in heaven broke God's order. The words echo gently, but now they sound different, not desperate, not pleading. They sound like gratitude, like a song. You realize that what was once an act of rescue has become an act of celebration. The rule that was broken was never about defiance, it was about love daring to reach one step further. You close your eyes and whisper into the quiet, "Thank you for breaking it." And then you hear laughter, light, familiar, and full of joy, asterisk you were worth the rule, asterisk the voice says. Tears rise, but they're soft, peaceful. You aren't the same person who once sat in darkness, clutching a mysterious letter. You are the letter now. Every action, every word, every kindness you offer is another sentence written by love's hand. When you finally drift toward sleep, you dream of the river again, no longer frozen. The water runs clear, reflecting 1,000 points of light. Across the current, a figure waves, calm, radiant. It's Michael. He's not crying this time. He's smiling. Behind him, the sky opens wide, endless and bright. You realize that heaven isn't above you, it's within you, around you, breathing through every act of love that ever dared to cross the boundary between despair and hope. You step toward the river. The water doesn't resist. It welcomes. And as you walk through the light, you hear the final whisper, not a command, not even a message, just truth. Love was never meant to follow orders. You open your eyes. The world greets you with dawn. The story that began with a letter ends with a life fully lived, awake, aware, alive. And somewhere, far beyond the noise of the world, heaven smiles.